Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of Life of Love. I'm Adam,
I'm Steph.
and we are still in love.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, for supporting us and coming and watching this week's episode. We truly appreciate all of you and all the support you've given us over the past 10 weeks now. Just a reminder, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And we put out daily shorts once or twice a day on YouTube. So if you guys want just a snippet of what we put on here every week, be sure to check us out on YouTube. So this week again, we are sponsored by Fundy Shores Hideaway, located near Alma, New Brunswick. It is the ultimate vacation destination. So if you're looking for a place to go camping this year, ATVing, it's a great place to visit and station yourself if you want to look at some of the amazing places in New Brunswick, including the Bay of Fundy. This week, we are going to be talking about spring cleaning. It's middle of March here now. The sun's shining. The snow's mostly melting. Hopefully it...
We're good. Hopefully.
Hopefully it doesn't come back. We've had it before, actually. I was looking at picture. It was a video. I think it was from a year or two ago, and it was you were out there shoveling. I just come home from work, and you were out there shoveling. So
in March?
In March. So I don't know if it was last year or the year before.
Can't be last year because last year we barely had snow. So.
And it could happen. I mean, mid-March. I remember as a kid.
Yeah, it's always something.
All our friends used to go away skiing. I had a couple friends that used to go away skiing over March break.
Mm-hmm.
And now, times are changing.
Yep.
We are talking about spring cleaning and spring cleaning your relationship. So we're a couple months into the year. If people have, if they made some goals, whether they're personal or relationship-wise, it's always a good time to reset every couple months, revisit, and make sure that you're on your path. If you're not, get yourself back on the path, get your relationship back on the path, and then plan for a stronger and happier future.
Yes.
So one thing that is always there, they call it emotional clutter.
Okay.
So it's things like bad habits, resentment, unspoken issues, and they build up over time. Now, we talked about this a couple weeks ago about love languages and a little bit about annoyances and making sure that you know what your partner's looking for. So is it, quality time together? Is it acts of service?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about some bad habits. So, if you went through and did the love language, what was that survey that we did that we talked about? The quiz. If some of the, if there's small annoyances that came up, if there's bad habits that came up in there, in discussing that with your partner, you want to make sure that you're not continuing to carry those forward. Mm-hmm. So it's always good that you and your partner sit down and review some of this. So some annoyances or some things, just lack of communication. That's a big one. Comes up all the time, like no matter what it is, whether it's life or business.
I think communication comes up in everything. Like, could be from jobs to friends to partners, right? There's always that communication aspect.
And there's nothing worse than all of a sudden you stop communicating. It doesn't matter whether it's if it's life or business, work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you've got those open lines of communication, always going there and checking in with everybody just to make sure that you're not having that resentment continually building up, and that issues are being addressed, because there's nothing worse than you feeling something inside and your partner doesn't understand it, and you just keep building up inside, and then all of a sudden you explode one day. Mm-hmm. And
there's also, I find, like, two sides to that as well, right? Like, there's always the communication, and you don't communicate, and it bottlenecks, and then it reaches a point where it just, explodes. But there's, I think, a lot of opportunity before it gets to that point on both parties, where, if someone isn't saying anything, the other person can say like, "Hey,
Right, knowing the signs
yeah,
and
right."
knowing
Like
your partner
how
goes
to
back again
navigate that,
to the
right?
love languages. Like if you know
Yeah,
your partner, needs quality time or acts of service,
yeah,
and you should always constantly be reflecting like, why do they seem upset today?
mm-hmm,
Why are they distant today?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then go back and think about, what have I been pulling the weight around the house? I've been helping with the kids, um, lack of date nights or time away, or has your
Yeah, or maybe it's just maybe the other person, or the whoever it is, like your boss or your coworker or your friend, maybe they just need to like just talk it out, and not necessarily the love languages, right? Maybe they just need an ear, right? And then that way you can kind of help navigate them through that sort of issue that they're having,
right.
right?
Yep.
So I think there's always, two sides to everything, right? So, no matter how flat you can get that pancake, there's always the other
Mm-hmm.
side.
And so with that, one thing that is recommended is that you set aside time to have a judgment-free talk.
I agree.
So you want to make sure that you're airing out your issues.
Yeah.
Um, Forgive and let go.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. You think about when people have arguments, or when you have your own arguments. If you continually bring up things that happened in the past.
But I think there's also like, there's a reason why things, from the past keep coming up, right? Like perhaps it's like that issue is still getting repeated and that's why they bring it up. Right? Like so I always, I always I always joke that like I can see both sides, and it's kind of like a difficult position to be in, because like I can see how this person may react and behave, but I also can understand how like, for example, if it was between you and Billy Bob over here, I can see both sides. So it's always a little difficult to kind of be able to see both perspectives.
Yeah.
And it's what you do after that point that is the difficult like to navigate, right? Like, I can see your point, I can see your point. How do we move on from this?
Yeah,
Right?
so that's where then it's recommended that you set future boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, hey, listen, you haven't been pulling, let's just say it's chores around the
Sure,
house. So
yeah.
you say to your
Because
partner,
that's a common one.
hey, you haven't been pulling your weight. You haven't been helping with the kids.
Yeah.
So in the future, I expect you to, help out whatever,
Yeah.
2 nights a week, 3 nights a week.
The word
Depends.
expected
Well,
might
yeah,
it might throw people off.
Yeah.
It might be like, "Hey, I really would like to see you, pull your weight around the house, and this is how I can see, how I would envision that. Picking up the kids from school, or, going grocery shopping for me, or, whatever it is." Yeah.
Yeah, and then going back to your love languages, like, hey, plan a night out, or make sure that you're complimenting me for pulling the weight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why let's say the wife, for instance, all they want is just some recognition that they're pulling the weight. Maybe the husband's working extra hours, or for whatever it could be, right? Maybe they got a project they're trying to finish, right?
Yeah.
Just be able to say, hey, thanks for pulling the weight
Yeah.
this week. And saying it like, or even daily, like, hey, thanks again for pulling the weight. Thanks again for doing the dishes, for looking after the kids, whatever, appointments, all these things. And then, I mean, that would then help prevent all these problems from happening in the future if,
Yeah, I agree. I can see
if
that.
these conversations are happening, and you're fulfilling the person's either emotional or physical or whatever needs, whatever personal needs that they have. Just having that. And it really, I mean, when it comes down to it, if you're doing exactly what your partner wants, if they're feeling emotionally supported and whatever, spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever they need, then they can't really be upset, because you're doing, you know what I mean? Like you're doing, if you're doing what they want, like I said,
especially if they've told you like this is what I want to see, or this is what I would like to have out of this relationship or whatever. And you actually listen to what they actually want and are fulfilling, that want list, then yeah, I agree with you.
If let's say the husband's like, what do you mean? I've been helping around the house. And the wife's just going, I don't need you to help around the house. I have no problems doing that.
Yeah.
All I want you to do is, say thanks or
Yeah.
can you just plan a night out or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So that's,
Yeah.
that's something to make sure.
Side topic, but women are naturally naturally have decision fatigue naturally, because as women mothers, we tend to make a lot of decisions in our daily lives, whether it be in the home, for our children, for relationships, for our jobs. So when someone tells you like, hey, we need to go on date nights more, a lot of the times I feel like that should be like the man's role, because women are like historically decision fatigue. Like, and that's for me. I will say, like, I have no problem saying that. Like, I do experience decision fatigue. It's so much easier for me if you were like, hey, this, and this is done. All you got to do is, X, Y, and Z. If the decision is made for me, it is so much easier on my part.
This funny, I was looking over like upcoming movies and stuff that are coming out. Got some passes and stuff to use up. And I was like, oh, I should ask her if she wants to go see whatever. I was like, no, she's not going to want me to ask her. So I'm just going to book it. And then a couple days before, I'll just tell you, hey, whatever's out, we're going, just so you know. Hey, what are you doing next Saturday?
You know that meme of like Mr. Rogers where he's like, you're learning so much. Yeah, that's what's going on in my head right now.
What are you doing again next Saturday? When is the kids' soccer done? Friday? This Friday? Next Friday?
Gosh, yeah.
But it's true, right? So that right there, I caught myself for that, right? And then like yesterday, I'm just like looking online real quick, like what's upcoming events. And it's really good on Facebook. You just go to events under your page, and it'll show you upcoming events that are coming up.
Yeah,
there's a lot of paint nights coming up, but a lot more paint your partners. Lots of those coming up in the area. So they're rotating around. There's some in Cambridge and in Guelph coming up as well. So if you guys are in those areas and want to do those paint nights like we talked about a couple episodes ago, if you want, go back and you can see it a couple episodes ago as well. But yeah, just working towards, building upon, what we've learned in previous episodes. And then now that we're into spring, we're going to reflect and reminisce about where we are and where we're going forward, and then moving past it.
Yeah. And it's always good to, when you're reflecting, to recognize like this worked for us, this didn't. So we're going to, not do that, and we're gonna go more over here, right? So,
and then you want to make sure that you're on that same train tracks. Like even if you guys are on separate train tracks, you're running parallel with each other, with a common end goal in sight, so you know where you're going. But maybe the partner's I'm gonna take a detour here. When I was actually researching for this episode, it did bring up a thing like, maybe one partner needs to be patient because the other partner is going after promotion, for instance. So, we had that when you were going to school, night school and stuff. So, just got to pull the extra weight at night while you're going to school, and just making sure that you've got time to relax as well, because you're, it's more work on your side. Depends if I when I used to be in the field, right? We just knew like, I was going to be working longer hours, but with that meant I'd be making more money, so you can work a little bit less. So there's kind of a trade-off there, but we're still moving towards the same path together.
Yep.
And then there's if you're kind of stuck in a rut, we can just kind of feel this right now, right? It's just kind of like it's like the blues right now. It's just kind of like moody outside. The weather's been bad, but the
weather can play a lot into people's like emotions and behaviors, right? That lack of sun really, um, really can affect people for sure.
And you get on this the monotonous just like you're like on a hamster wheel.
Yeah, and you can't get off, and
Right.
it's just going.
And all of a sudden, then you start feeling like you're roommates
Yeah.
and not partners anymore.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of coexisting, not growing together. So, um, if that's the case, then it's always recommended to do a full reset. So a mini break, kind of like we were talking about last week. Like, should you take breaks or whatever in your relationships, or
like
have
time
breaks
apart,
and all that, right? So
Yeah.
even if you just take whatever, even if it's just an afternoon or an evening or a day to just go, okay, let's set aside some time for yourself. Go over some of your goals, some of your aspirations still for this year. Where are you and your resolutions or goals for the year, whether it's business or life, fitness, health.
Yeah.
And then come back together and then decide, like, this is where I want to go. This is where I want to go. How do we make this work?
Yeah.
There's also making sure you're changing the scenery up as well. Sometimes you just gotta, again, you've been stuck inside for the winter weather, the winter months. Now that the weather's getting a little bit better, do you go on a walk somewhere, a hike? I always see lots of cool things on TikTok and stuff.
Well, I think, it is good for couples, or even if you want to do it by yourself. Ontario has a lot of provincial parks that you can go and explore, and they all often have these trails that you can hike, and you can just, like, I've lived here, I was born and raised here, and I've haven't seen probably 10% of this province, right? Like, and I live here, and we live here.
Yeah, we
right?
live in like an area too that's so like 2 hours up to like cottage country, an
right.
hour down to like the escarpment, Niagara Falls, all that.
There's all these parks that you can explore and just walk through, right? Yeah.
So change the scenery. Talked about that. There's a quote, and it was like, you got to make space to grow inside. So if you're holding all that resentment inside of you, you got to make sure that you're clearing space, just like you do, spring cleaning in your house, clean out the closet so you can bring in some new stuff. And then you want to set yourself up with a fresh plan for moving forward.
Yep.
Get rid of the old stuff, the old baggage, clear your mind, and go forward. It doesn't matter whether you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship.
It's always good advice to just, get out of that rut.
It's like the Einstein quote. It's like you can't solve problems if you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So if it hasn't worked for you for the last 10, 20 years of your life, maybe take a step back and
pivot.
Assess that, pivot. Change the scenery up, change your location, change your job. Whatever you need to help get you forward. Take on a new hobby. That's one thing.
And little steps, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a monumental step. It could just be a little thing that gets you closer to, feeling, that happiness or joy that was missing. It doesn't have to be like a huge, like, oh, I can never get there. Like, it should never feel that way. It should just, if I do this, or if I do change this a little bit, I might be able to open my door or open the horizons up a little bit.
Yeah, that's one thing, about goals. I always want to make sure that they're
attainable.
Real and relatable.
And attainable.
Yeah. So it's all about those small wins, right, to build momentum, just like we talked about previous episodes ago about, if you're in school, you got to learn basic math before you can learn algebra and calculus and all those things. No different. If you want to run a marathon, you got to start by running your first mile or first kilometer.
Yeah.
If you want to have a long-lasting relationship, you got to start by building that foundation and fixing those cracks as you go to make sure that you're able to withstand whatever may come in the future and whatever gets thrown at you. And make sure that you don't come crashing down with that. And so, with that, think that's pretty good for this. I've got some notes on a board. I'm like, oh, I'm at my last note. There's a little bit of shorter episode this week, but
which is okay.
Which is
Life is busy.
Oh, everything's it's always different. Every time you come on, you don't know where everything's gonna go.
Yeah.
And how much information do you want to put out there, or do you need to put out there? But yeah, I mean, anyone who's watching this show, let us know if you guys prefer one distant or one duration long, like shorter or longer. But yeah, just the final quote that I wrote down here for this, and spring is about new beginnings. So make this season one where your relationship can grow.
Good quote.
So
good quote.
That's that. So yeah, with that, we appreciate you guys for checking us out. Remember, you can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And with that, we will see you next week.
Bye.